Gender equality refers to women and men being able to access and participate on an equal footing in all spheres of life, such as democratic governance, decision-making, and the security sector. The Non-Governmental Gender Organizations Coordinating Council, NGOCC, has launched a coordinated elections campaign strategy for women in politics. ZNBC, in partnership with NGOCC, brings to you this program with the aim of promoting women in politics. I am your host, Beenzu Muleya Moola, and I'm not alone in studio. I have Judith Kabemba, who is the Democratic Party DP spokesperson. Next to her is Saboi Imboela, National Democratic Congress, NDC spokesperson. And last but not the least, we have Madam Juliet Chibuta, who is the director for National Women's Lobby. Ladies, thank you so much for coming through to the program. Now, let me start with you, Juliet. You are the chairperson of the steering committee, which is implementing the coordinated elections campaign strategy. Just share with us what is the women's movement doing to enhance participation of women in politics?
Thank you very much, Beenzu. The women's movement has decided to come together and start working towards the 2021 elections, promoting women's participation in politics and also in the 2021 elections. As you may be aware, political parties have already begun. The momentum has already begun. So also as a women's movement, we are also preparing ourselves. We are working with the women from all political parties to ensure that they are adopted and also to ensure that they prepare for the upcoming 2021 elections.
All right, now, obviously, the women's movement has been implementing activities over the years towards enhancing women's participation. What are you doing different?
Immediately, the 2016 elections passed. We already began preparing the women, building capacities, and also urging political parties to ensure that they are involving women in whatever is being done. This time, what we have done differently is we have decided to work together as different institutions within the women's movement so that there is no duplication of funding, and also so that there is no fatigue, whereby as women's lobby we go to NDC, the following day NGOCC goes to NDC, the following day WILSA goes to NGOCC. We want to work together so that we put our resources together and we see what we can do for the women politicians.
All right, now let me come to you, Saboi, a woman with a lot of titles, obviously, looking at women's issues in terms of leadership. What do you think are some of the challenges that women in political parties face with regards to being adopted as candidates?
Well, one of the biggest issues is the issue of resources, you know, because when a party is adopting candidates, they look at what they normally call resourcefulness. And resourcefulness, they look at how much money a candidate has. So the women, you find that normally they don't have money. You know, we do have also cultural, religious, and just traditional issues that also contribute. You find that in the communities that we live in, you know, people would rather vote for men than women, you know. So you find that even when parties at times are able to, let's say, adopt women, you find that women don't avail themselves for leadership. If you look at the past few years, we've had a lot of by-elections. And you find that in most of these by-elections, especially in the rural places, you find that political parties will have, let's say, 10, even as much as 15 candidates. And maybe there's one woman or no woman at all, you know. So those are the things which are contributing. And when you go there, you find that the women themselves are not availing themselves. One, they may not have resources. One, they don't have the courage or confidence, you know, so they don't have that support system that just tells them to say, can you do this, you can do this. And that is why we are so grateful with initiatives that the women's lobby, the NGOCC are coming up with, because for now they're able to mentor the women. They don't wait for elections to come. Before they, just after the elections from 2016 up to now, they've been with us and mentoring more women out there to participate in elections.
How do you think these challenges can be overcome?
I think basically this brings us to the empowering of women in our societies, because we also need to understand that most of our women are lagging behind where education is concerned. We have the new constitution that was passed, and the constitution demands that a person should have a grade 12 certificate in order for them to contest. But then we are coming from a background where women were considered to be kitchen figures and childbearing figures, and now we are trying to transit into a process where women should be empowered. So as we are empowering the women with education, we also need to empower the women with resources. But by and large, let me also mention that I think the 50-50 adoption bill should be enhanced in political parties, because that is one thing that is going to help the women, even when they do not have the much resources compared to the men, because really the adoption is comparison. Who has more money? Is it the man? Is it the woman? And so we find that the man will always be at an advantage. And that's where, if we have the bill enhanced, which is a 50-50% bill where political parties are compelled to adopt 50% women, whether they like it or not, it means the women will get a chance. But also, I think we also need to look at our current constitution. For example, when we look at Article 45, it talks about representation of various groups in, for example, in Parliament. And so when Parliament is opening, there should be that consideration to see, is there equal representation? Not to forget Article 68, that empowers the Republican president to appoint or nominate 8 members of Parliament. And in Article 69, the guidelines are given. So as the president is nominating the 8 members of Parliament, I think it should just be prudent that 50% should be given to the women, because that is going to help acquire numbers in Parliament.
All right, your thoughts, Saboi, on how women can overcome such challenges?
Affirmative action is very, very important, you know, and as long as we don't have that, I mean, to be very, very difficult. If you look at all countries in Africa that have managed to get the required number of women in parliament, it has been through quota systems, you know. So if you're going to have those cases, or rather we will have that situation whereby we say, okay, 50% of the candidates need to be women. Once we implement those quota systems, I think it's going to be very, very important. And like I said earlier on about the women's lobby and the NGOCC having been with us all this time, I also come in as the chairperson for the Women in Politics platform. And when we sit at the women's lobby as women, those are the things we discuss to say, let's talk or speak with one voice as women. When we go back to our political parties, all of us, let's go back and say, this is what we want, you know. So that thing of women coming together and speaking with one voice, so that the political parties are able to say, this is exactly what the women say, you know, are saying. Because normally, again, what normally disadvantages us as women is the issue of having divided voices, you know. So power lies in the hands of the men politically in the country, and sadly in many other countries for that matter, you know. So if we're going to go to the men and just say, this is what we want, you know, the women have to be given this and that, they want to do it. So legislation has to be changed for the men to really accept certain things, because as long as it is the way it is, then certainly things won't change.
All right, now coming to you, Juliet, other than profiling aspiring women, which is one of the activities in the coordinated elections campaign strategy by the women's movement, what other activities are you doing?
We've got many activities. Some of the activities include educating the voters themselves on issues of gender, issues of democracy, issues of governance, because the power lies in the hands of the voters. At the end of the day, you can campaign, you can sensitize. The voters themselves are the ones who are going to decide who to put in power. So we are going to do a lot of sensitization through roadshows, radio programs, to sensitize the people that if we call ourselves a democratic country, then our leadership needs to be balanced. Right now we have women who are, in terms of population, who are more than the men, but you will find that it's vice versa when it comes to leadership. So the leadership in our country should reflect what is in society. So we need to ensure that more women are being voted. Moreover, as a country, we have very progressive legislation when it comes to gender equality. what is actually in our laws is different from what is prevailing. We are one of the few countries that has progressive laws. We have the gender equity and equality law. Our gender policy is very progressive. Our constitution also is very progressive. Actually, the constitution already talks about 50-50 because it says that if in Article 259, if the leader is another gender, then the one who follows should be the other gender. So it means that they are already talking about 50-50. So we need to sensitize our country and also ensure that people are voting for both women and men.
All right. Now, obviously, we have seen women who are in leadership, and for the aspiring candidates, maybe, are they sending a message to the people out there to say women also have the potential to bring development to the country?
Yeah, basically, I think what I would say is that currently we have a situation where we have our fellow women that are already holding, for example, maybe parliamentary positions, ministerial positions, and all that. And I think that is where we need to scale up the whole process, because having women in such position gives us an advantage in such a way that those should be our voices. Those should be able to speak on different platforms and encourage the community as to why we should have women. Because, I mean, if we have 26 women in parliament, it means that the women that we have in parliament have a lot of challenges when it comes to passing bills, having votes for bills that concern women issues. And so those are the challenges that they should be bringing to the nation, and encouraging more women to stand up, as well as the voters to vote for the women, so that when we are in parliament, it means that we are going to have a balanced representation. But by and large also, I think the church should also come in and help, because most of the people that we have, we are all attached to one church or the other, and we know that the voice of the clergy is heard more than any other voice. And so when we have our clergy begin to talk to the church members, begin to talk to the community on the importance of the women, because we know that when God created a man, he created them with weaknesses as well as strengths. And that is the same for the women. And that is where we come in as partners in development. Where the man is weak, the woman comes in with a strength. And where the woman is weak, the man comes in with his strength. And that makes us equal partners in development. If we are going to have a system operating like that, believe you me, Zambia will be a different country in less than a year.
As a spokesperson, Saboi, do you think women leaders face challenges that are unique from the other challenges that, say, maybe their male counterparts will face?
Yeah, certainly. Women leaders face peculiar, or unique challenges. I remember when I stood as a Lusaka mayoral candidate, for example, you'd go for a radio TV interview, and either maybe the journalists or the callers will call in and say, apart from being a woman, what else do you bring to the table? And I would say, I'm not bringing being a woman to the table as the first thing. You get the point? Why should I, being a woman, be the first thing that you look at? So as a woman, society first and foremost will judge you by that when you get into leadership. But society should look at you first and foremost as a leader. What is it that you bring to the table? Do you have political experience? Do you have the right credential for the job? That's what they should look at. But society always judges women differently. They'll look at women in all sorts of ways. They look at women also in terms of maybe even personal lives. It's always amplified when it's a woman. So at the end of the day, I think it's very, very important for society to just learn to say that women, at the end of the day, when it comes to leadership, what they bring to the table is what it is that a man brings to the table. And before, we used to say that if you look at research, countries that are being run by women are doing very, very well. And it was a fact, Now, with the COVID situation in the country, I'm sure now we even have a bigger case, as women, to say, look at even the women that are run by, the countries that are run by women. They're doing so much in terms of COVID prevention, in terms of reducing or reversing the COVID situation. So now, as women, we do have that privilege to go back to society and say, look at what women are doing in other countries. So give Zambian women a chance, because they've got so much to contribute to the political dispensation and the development of this country.
All right, you're watching Women in Politics on your public service broadcasters, NBC TV1. For now, we catch a breath. Welcome back. You're watching Women in Politics, a program brought to you by ZNBC in partnership with NGOCC. And so today we are looking at coordinated elections campaign strategy for women in politics. And so my discussants in the studio are Juliet Chibuta, who is the Director, National Women's Lobby, Saboi Imboela, National Democratic Congress, NDC spokesperson. We also have Judith Kabemba, who is the Democratic Party, DP spokesperson. Coming to you, Judith, what would you tell other women out there that have got political ambitions and are holding back, thinking they may not have the support? You took the step and you're a spokesperson today.
Well, I think, first of all, as women, we need to realize that there's so much that we carry within us, so much talent, so much potential that we need to bring to the table in order to develop our country. And I mean, when we look at Zambia, we are actually very lucky because we have a female vice president, meaning the dice has been cast. We have a platform on which we can thrive. And so from there, we need to be strong. Yes, it is not easy to be a woman in politics. You'll have all these criticisms. You'll have all the challenges that you encounter. But I want to believe that great success comes with greater challenges. And great development comes with a resilient women group. And so what we need to do as women is that we need to come together. We need to help one another. If you're a woman out there and you want to join politics, you want to work for your people, and you are feeling like you can't do it, you are going back and forth, you need to get in touch with us so that we motivate one another. Because, I mean, for me to be here, there's someone that held my hand, and I am ready to hold someone's hand. So if you are there, you need to work with us. We shall hold your hand, and together we shall succeed.
All right, talking of motivation, Saboi, is there enough motivation to just encourage more women take up politics?
The motivation is there, I can say. I mean, of course, we need to do more and we have to continue doing whatever it is we're doing, but the motivation is there. And for me, I would like to encourage and thank, you know, the women's movement. I always say that, you know, because if you look at even the number of women in parliament and even just in our councils, the number is very little, you know. And that is why sometimes even when you face, or rather when we face difficulties in passing a law to do with women in parliament, you find that the women's movement is always so strong outside. And because of the women's movement, you find that the law is directed in a certain way, you know. I always give an example of the Anti-GBV Act, you know, to a point where at some point it became as if it was a fight between our former president, Mr. Rupia Banda, and I think the former board chairperson for the NGOCC by then, Mrs. Grillo, you know, because as the president was really shooting down the bill, the women's movement outside was very, very strong, you know. So for me, the motivation has always been there. And if you look at the women's movement, they have been there all along in terms of what they're doing outside parliament. You know, the bill is going on and they'll be there talking. You know, elections are coming up and they'll be there holding our hands as women politicians. You know, because I think like what Judith said earlier on, I don't know if it was rather Judith or Juliet, you know, it is so difficult, you know, sometimes if you look at when women want to get into politics, you know, but at the end of the day, if the women's voice is strong out there, you find that the encouragement will still be there. So for me, I can safely say that from what I have seen over the years, the women's voice has been very strong, you know, and I like I've said earlier on, I commend what the women's movement is doing at the end of the day. And even just the female politicians, I think all of us, when we're on radio or TV, we always make sure that we encourage more women to participate in politics.
All right, now coming to you, Juliet, how do you hope to ensure that we have more women councillors and MPs as the women's movement?
What we'll be doing this time is that we want to do a lot of lobbying and advocacy to political parties because we know that they hold the key when it comes to adoption. The reason why I'm saying this is that if you look at the trend of voting in our country, voters on the ground vote along political line. So we would want to encourage political parties to ensure that they also adopt women in places where they are popular. There's been a trend where you will see most of the political parties, if you scan around, most of them adopt women, more women where they're not popular. Even now, if you look at the different political parties that are represented in parliament, you will find that where the party is the most most popular, that's why you have the least number of women. You have one woman in each province. In some provinces, we don't even have women. So I think that's where we need to begin with. If we come to a conclusion that people in this country vote along political party lines, then the political parties has a larger part to play when it comes to putting more women in leadership. But also, women need to start mobilizing themselves and working with the communities. During the 2016 elections, a new trend came up, because in certain areas, people were saying that, okay, you haven't been adopted by the political parties. What we will do is that at presidential level, we'll still vote for this political party. At the councillor level, we'll still vote for this political party. But at MP level, stand as independent. We'll vote for you. And we saw that trend, I think, in both political parties that are represented in parliament. We saw independent women standing as independents, winning elections, meaning that the community has recognized that as a woman, you are the best candidate and you can do better. So we encourage the women politicians not to give up. If you are not adopted, you can still stand as an independent as long as you've got support from the communities, and especially traditional leaders, religious leaders, and just the people within the communities.
All right, as we wrap up, let me start with you, Saboi. What would be your message, specifically as we go towards the 2021 elections?
Okay, my message to the electorates is that women in parliament is not a theory, a theoretical issue. It's a developmental issue, so we need more women, to be represented, or also to represent the women out there, so we need women in parliament, we need women in council positions, we need women as presidents, so they should support women. This thing of saying a man is better, a man can do this, a man can do that. Women can do exactly what a man does and even better. In our homes, we see how women run the homes. A government is almost the same thing. That level of commitment, that level of discipline, that level of planning, that's what you need. So the way the women are able to run their homes, that's the way they are able to run governments. I think from independence up to now, every election year, we've got more women voters than men. So that should translate into more women also voting for their fellow women. This thing of saying women don't support each other, a man is better, it should be a thing of the past. I think I encourage the women out there, first of all, to avail themselves for leadership. Have that confidence, stand up, be counted. Give the political parties a chance to say, we were there, but you failed to adopt us. Don't give the political parties a chance to say, but we wanted to adopt you, but you are not there. So avail yourselves for leadership and also vote for as many women as you can.
All right. And the remarks, Judith, will end with you. Your advice to women that want to stand in 2021.
Well, my advice to women that wants to stand in 2021 is that we need to know that the future of this country partly lies in the hands of the women, because we have more women in our communities. We have more women that are suffering. We have more women that need empowerment. I mean, today, we know that most of the homes are women-headed homes. And so when we have more women in positions of decision-making, we know that the decisions will be rightfully made in the interest of the women. It is easier done by a person that has gone through it than a person who has not gone through it. And so I think lastly, I'd want to thank the NGO CC as well as the Women's Lobby Group for the great work that they are doing. They are giving us women a chance to come out and be what we are supposed to be.
All right, ladies, thank you so much for coming through to our program.
Thank
you
you.
so much.
All right, so you've been watching Women in Politics, a program that has been brought to you with the compliments of ZNBC in conjunction with NGO CC. And so today we're looking at the coordinated elections campaign strategy for women in politics. Thank you so much for your time. Until next week, same time, goodbye.